One of the questions that we get asked frequently is, okay, so you've identified that shale is changing energy markets, and it's going to mean that shale barrels will turn on and turn off according to the price of oil. So what does that mean going forward? Well, we've done a lot of history, we've done a lot of looking at history to kind of get an understanding for what that means. And so what it's going to mean is that because shale can turn on and off more quickly, that the global supply and demand for oil is going to be in better balance than it has been for the last 30 or 40 years during the OPEC era. And the reason for that is how quickly shale can turn on and off. So whereas many people may be scared of what happens because of shale, in fact, it will mean that the cycles will be less volatile than in the past. They'll be quicker, but they won't be as high in amplitude as they were during the OPEC era, starting in 1973. In fact, prior to 1973, the Texas Railroad Commission managed the price of oil on a global basis. And that period of time has given us some insight as to what might happen in the future. Prior to 1973, when the Texas Railroad Commission managed the price of oil on a global basis, cycles were kind of very short, 3 to 5 years in duration. And at the same time, the height of the cycles was very low. It was very manageable for the oil companies because they kind of knew the range that oil prices would remain in, and it gave them a sense that they could invest for the future. Let's compare that period of time to the OPEC era starting in 1973, where a cartel was very slow to move and the types of barrels that were able to come on and off the market were very long in duration. It meant that cycles were very out of whack, if you will, and it meant that cycles were long in duration and high in amplitude, and it meant that looking at that period of time as an analog to the future is not appropriate in our view. So again, we look to that period prior to 1973 when the Texas Railroad Commission managed the price of oil on a global basis as a better comparison for the future than the last 40 years of the OPEC era.